Hi, I'm Keith Schwartz. Welcome to my tape on the yellow belt requirements for Judo. The belt ranking system in the martial arts was invented by Dr. Jigoro Kano, who is the founder of Judo, and therefore we want to keep the standards very high. The techniques you'll learn in this tape will put you in good stead with any judo club in the world. The first technique we're going to cover is called Han Shizentai, and it's basic natural stance. Stances are important in any martial art, but none more so than Judo, where your balance is under attack every second. You want to put your feet in Han Shizentai slightly wider than shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, and the hands can be resting at the sides, in fists, or in a fighting position. Okay, the next stance is Migi Shizentai. That's right natural stance. Migi means right. Shizentai is the stance, or the body posture. The right foot leads. Again, the knees are bent, relaxed, hips over the feet, shoulders over the hips. Hands at the sides, in fists, or again in a fighting stance. Reversing the procedure, we go to Hidari Shizentai. Again, the hands in three positions. Now I'd like to demonstrate Kumikata, or the basic gripping procedures of Judo. The first grip we'll learn for yellow belt requirement is a basic sleeve and lapel grip. I'll grab Ed's lapel right up about at the collarbone. And conversely, he'll grab my lapel in the same spot. I grab his sleeve just above his elbow. Okay? All the throws that we're going to be covering in this tape can be applied very, very safely and very effectively from this stance. Therefore, it's important you both learn this stance and this grip. All right, thank you. Okay, the next thing we want to move on to is how to move around. In martial arts, mobility is a key to success. What you have to do is maintain a strong fighting stance as much as possible. Be very defensive while creating your offense. You want to maneuver your body just as an army would maneuver its troops to be in the most favorable position for attack. Always keeping your weapons, your hands, your feet, your head, facing your opponent as much as possible, and try to divert his weapons away as much as possible. All right, the first step we're going to use is called Sugiyashi, and it's slide stepping. And it's one of the best ways to keep your fighting stance and get mobility on the mat. What I want to do is from Migi Shizentai, or right natural stance, I'll allow the lead foot to come forward just slightly and to bring the back foot up and again return to the fighting stance. Advancing. Retreating. Notice I always lead with the foot in the direction that I want to travel in. So if I wanted to travel to the right side, the right foot leads. If I travel to the left side, the left foot leads. And all these stances and all these motions must be learned right and left side. All right, now I want to show some application for Sugiyashi, slide stepping. If Ed was right here and he attempted to grip me, we say in Judo, Phil Porter, who is the president of USJ, says, grip first, attack instantly. Make all attacks terminal attacks. Well, to grip first and attack instantly, I have to make sure he doesn't grip me before I grip him. He reaches for me, slide step. All right? If I want to get in on him, slide step. All right? If I'm thinking about attacking while he's still thinking about gripping, I'm going to be the winner. All right, thank you, Ed. Okay, the next way we have to move is we have to be able to turn our bodies. And Tai Sabaki is the study of pivots in Judo. Turning your body is essential for most of the Judo throws, as well as for a lot of the arm locking techniques. The Tai Sabaki that is required for yellow belt promotion is to be able to advance 90 degrees and to retreat 90 degrees. Again, advancing, coming back to your fighting stance. If I was in Migi Shizentai, or right natural stance, and I was pivoting 90 degrees, this is where I'd be. If I was retreating 90 degrees, this is where I'd be. When you tie them together with an advance and a retreat, you can get a two-step 180, which for many forward throws is the key way to get into the throw. You step forward 90 degrees, retreat 90 degrees. Step forward, retreat. Okay, and if somebody's charging you, what you want to do is retreat and then step forward. Okay, let's see some application, Ed. If I'm here, you can play very defensive. Okay? I'm here and I have to set up a throw. I have to get into a position to throw him. So if I want to throw him with a forward throw, I'm going to have to step in 90, be over 90. Then I'm in position to throw. And we'll cover the stages of a throw in a little bit. But right now I just want you to see how the pivots work. If Ed tries to advance on me, I can retreat and then advance. And again, throw him with a forward throw. Okay, thank you. All right, now there's another aspect to motion, and that is kazushi, or off-balancing. Every time you commit your body to motion, you are in a state of off-balance. You're in a state of flux. In fact, just to stand still takes millions of impulses from your brain to the muscles in your body. What you want to do with kazushi, or balance breaking, is nothing mystical. It's one of the hardest parts of judo to understand, but it really shouldn't be. It's quite basic. What you want to do is to get a person in an off-balance position, as I said earlier, where they feel they must take a step, and attack them before they realize they're in an off-balance position. All right, there's 8 basic directions for off-balancing, and we'll demonstrate those again with Ed. All right, the fundamental basic stance for fighting would be a diagonal stance. But to demonstrate the off-balancing position, I'll ask him to take Hansha Zentai, basic natural stance. Notice here he has no defense against a push. If his feet remain there, he must place a foot to remain standing. Conversely, if I pull. The human animal is a biped. It's instinctive. He's been training on this since he was a little baby, walking out of the crib, to place a foot where he's falling. In judo, we take advantage of that. If I pull him, take a big step. If I pull you. And I take his foot out from under where he's stepping. We want to get the feeling for him that he's walking on marbles or that he took a step a little bit too far. Okay, now if I push him and he tries to put a foot back, I can make that foot stick. And again, throw. All right. Aside from changing his stance, there's another way to attack him, and that is to change his posture, and therefore break his balance. If I cause his body to bend here, his stance hasn't changed, but he's much more unstable to the front. Okay? If I lift him up on his toes, he's much more unstable to the front. If I push him onto his heels, he's got even less of a base on his toes, and he becomes extremely unstable to the back. If I pull against him and get him to crouch and pull against me, and I was to suddenly disappear, let go of your grip, where would he go? So if we can change the shape of his body as well as changing his stance, we create opportunities. We create a balance-breaking effect called kazushi. It can be either his motions that do it, or it can be mine. For my motions, I have to generate a force. My force is generated either by changing my stance. In other words, if I want to drive him back, I plant a driver leg and push. If I want to pull him, I can create a driver leg in front and push against it. To the sides, simply put a driver to the right to throw to this side, his right, or vice versa. All right, another way I can create the force that you need to generate kazushi is to change the shape of my body. Just as we took advantage of this change of posture of his body, what I'll do if I want to push him, I can keep my stance the same. I don't have to throw a driver leg back. I'll arch my body forward and create a push. Without changing my stance, I can pull by sinking back. Pulling in. Using again, don't overuse the arms. A normal judo match is 4 or 5 minutes. If you try to do your kazushi simply doing this, your arms are going to be lead weights 3 minutes into the match, even if you're in good shape. Okay, and that's the basics of kazushi. Now, his stance when he's in a diagonal is stronger forward and backward. But it's not so strong to the corners. We've discussed if he's in normal stance, he's very weak, forward and backward. His base is a little longer, turn your body. His base is longer this way, but I can still take him to these outside corners. Okay? His foot will do one of two things. It will either lock onto the ground, the knee will lock out, in which case I can push him over it, or the leg will collapse, in which case he goes down anyway. So we've got 4 directions so far. There's a few more. There's 8 basic directions, and that's the corners. The corners are important because we have a diagonal fighter. He always stands in a diagonal stance. We're going to have to attack to where his base is short or catch him on one foot. Notice when you catch him with a forward or backwards kazushi, he still has 2 feet to fight from. If you catch him long side, it takes a little more energy to do it, but you catch him on one foot. Much harder for him to defend against your attacks. So the corner directions are to the rear corner, short side balance, to the rear corner, long side balance, to the front corner, long side balance, and to the front corner, short side balance. And notice every time I pull him, he feels compelled to take a step. Okay? When you get used to doing this, as you'll see in the throws, especially the foot throws, you're going to have a lot of fun looking down at the person who might be 1.5 feet taller than you. And you're going to realize that judo really is an effective martial art. All right, now I'm going to show how you can apply the study of kazushi to make your throws more effective. Throws can be done without trying to break the balance first. But just as my friend Hal Lubert says, an airplane can use a lot of jet power and get off the ground without wings, but it's a hell of a lot more effective with wings. And what we want to do is be as effective as possible in judo. Maximum efficiency is one of the key elements of judo. All right, the first thing I'll do is try to break his balance to his right-left corner. His stance is going to make it hard for me to stick him with the right front corner. I'll have to pull him on his long base. So what I want to do is to get him on his short base. That is, if you were to draw a line between his big toes, when you throw this way or this way, you're throwing along the long base. If you intersect that line at 90 degrees, you're throwing along the short base. So I'm going to apply a left side Ippon Seoinagi. All right, we'll move so we'll see it a little better. All right, I'll pull, take the step, and throw. All right, left and right stance. All right, now I'll apply a throw to the long base, right front corner. I'll pull him out to the side, take a step, and throw. So that was the first throw was against a short base, and it was a roller technique. The second throw was against a long base, and it was a driver technique. And we'll get into rollers and drivers a little bit later. Now to the back against a right natural stance. Attacking against the short base and driving to the corner, I'll attack with a technique called Kouchi Makikomi, which is a wraparound technique. Notice what I'm doing with my driver leg. I'm creating that force, that kazushi I'm talking about. 45-degree angle is the optimum angle for placing a stance-changing kazushi. Beyond that, you lose control. He should be going onto the ground when you're this far. Okay? Less than that, if I try to come in here, I haven't created kazushi at all. I've created a situation where I'll be countered. To attack to his far along base, I'll take left side Osoto Gake. So basically what you can think of is four fundamental directions. You see where his feet are, you draw that imaginary line between his toes, intersect it at 90 degrees, you've got four distinct possibilities for your throws. The next phase of the yellow belt test is ukemi. Ukemi is the falling ways in judo. We do a lot of throwing in judo, more than just about any martial art I can think of. And if we want to keep people on the mats and coming back to learn more technique, they have to learn how to fall safely. Ukemi uses the theory that the limbs, the forearm, the hand, and the legs are tougher parts of the body than the shoulders, the kidneys, the ribs. And what we want to do is to take the fall and roll through it as much as possible, and also use the limbs like whips to crack out onto the mat at the instant before body impact. And that will absorb the shock of the throw. And your hands and feet can handle a lot of punishment on the mat. It's a little different story throwing on the hard ground. In self-defense, you'll find judo is one of the most effective fighting arts you can learn. The same throws that we get up from routinely on a concrete surface can be really damaging. All right, in ukemi, the basic technique we'll learn is koho ukemi, or back fall. It's in some ways the most frightening fall to take because it's a blind fall. You can't see where you're going. And that's why we teach it first. Once people get past that subconscious mound of not knowing quite where the mat is, but learning through timing, they build a lot of confidence, and it helps keep them on the mats. Koho ukemi, first we want to roll through, get comfortable with the mat, learn the distance, right from a sitting position. All right, always try to be more like a ball rather than a flat board hitting the mat. All right? Okay, now we tuck in our head, look at the knot of your belt if you're wearing a gi. You can cross your hands in front, keep your fingers and your thumb in. Okay, don't spread them wide. And strike with the palm down and this surface of the forearm. So crossing. Again, slap as hard as you can because you want to absorb the shock of a throw. All right? Remember to tuck in the head, really important. Don't want to get your bell rung. All right, now we're going to bring that up to a squatting position. Right from here. Again, the hands crossed and roll back. Try to get up without posting with your hands. You build your abdominal muscles. It's very important for throwing. Again, squatting. Here. And again. Let yourself roll through as much as possible. After you've got the basics for the back fall, now we can begin the side fall technique. And again, we'll start from a sitting position. On side fall, you're going to see the mat out of the corner of your eye, so it's not quite as difficult to learn. Again. And to the right. All right, now what we're going to do is roll ourselves up onto our shoulders, come down with the hand and the feet. So you roll up, come down to the side, up, to the other side, alternating. It's a good way to train on Yoko Ukemi. Now we bring it up again to a squatting position. Just like we're sitting in a chair, we're going to bring a leg across the front, just like a leg was knocked out of the chair. Roll through your ball to the other side. When you slap in either Koho or Yoko Ukemi, remember to keep your hands down by your hips. If you reach out way up here, what's going to happen is the shock of the fall will be right at your neck and your shoulders. They should be down by the hips for either one. The next falling technique is Zempo Ukemi, or forward fall. This one is really important to know, especially for competitive judo players. The reason is, if I can throw a person, even if it looks like a perfect throw, if he can turn out and land in a forward fall, there's no score given in competition judo. The self-defense benefit of this is, obviously, if you're thrown onto your spinal cord onto the hard surface, there's no telling what's going to happen. If you're able to turn out and land this way, you're guaranteed to be hurt a lot less. So Zempo Ukemi is first practice from a kneeling position. Drive yourself forward, and this one takes tremendous timing. You don't want to land on the point of your elbow. You want to slap, again, with the hand and the forearm and absorb the shock of the fall. The elbows are flared out just slightly. Okay, so the hands, after you get used to that from squatting, and finally from a standing position. All right, the final falling technique for yellow belt. Zempo Kaiten Ukemi. That's forward roll fall. From Migai Shizentai. Migai Shizentai is right natural stance. Crouch down into a squatting position. Put your hand down with the fingers turned inward. Whenever you post with your hands on a mat, be it mat work or falling technique or what have you, never post with the fingers out. What happens is the elbow locks out, and I've seen too many people damage their arms this way. You can have shoulder injuries, elbow injuries, ripped ligaments, what have you. Always post in. The arm will naturally bend. It will naturally collapse. You're here, and then here. Put these fingers straight ahead. This toe straight ahead. You roll in the direction of that big toe. And you're going to push first off the left foot and finally off the right foot. Here's the technique. Down to a crouch, here. Notice where my feet are. Notice my hands. The slap, the guard hand, not crossing the feet and not having one further than the other. There's danger in this, you can injure the knee. Keep them coming out like whips. Knees slightly bent. Don't overextend, don't underextend. Again, right natural stance. Place the hands, tuck in the head, and push. After you've gotten used to the squatting Zempo Kaiten, you start from a standing position, from Han Shizentai, taking a step and making the fall. All falling techniques should be learned right and left side. All right, now I'd like to bring my assistants, Ed and Lowell, and we'll demonstrate how some of the ukemi, the falling techniques, can be practiced with a partner. All right, Lowell, if you could take a hands and knees position. The first technique was koho ukemi, or back fall. Ed will sit on his back and let himself slide over. All right, note what Ed's doing. He's letting himself slide over as far as possible before he releases from the back. You don't want to be sitting in this position and launch yourself back because you're going to end up right on your neck. Let yourself slide through. Okay, why don't you practice that a few more times. Okay, you reached out a little further than I would have liked to see with the hands. Try to keep them at your hips. A back fall from this technique makes it a little bit tougher to do that, but consciously try that. Keep your head tucked in. Better. All right. Stand up, please. All right, now another way to practice back fall for more advanced players is Ed's going to have to keep his feet solidly planted on the ground, and he's not going to be able to take a step. His subconscious is going to say step when Lowell lets go, but he has to tell his feet to stand still. Lowell's not going to let him know when he's going to let go in this drill, and Ed has to time his fall. Begin. Good. Again. Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to Yoko Kemi, our side fall. In Yoko Kemi, he'll take a military push-up position. Okay, and very slowly, okay, Ed's going to reach across underneath his body. Lowell will take a grip with both hands, and it's important that you don't pull fast on this hand. What can happen is if you jerk on that hand, you can damage his shoulder. So slowly he'll pull it straight up. Ed will swirl around and slap into a side fall technique. Okay, good. Again. Okay, other side. Stay where you are. Other side. Low. All right, you notice he's on line with his hip. Good. All right, now that we've gained a little confidence with Yoko Kemi, we want to take it up to the next level. So what Ed will do is cross grip way up on Lowell's lapel, right up at the nape of his neck. And what Lowell has to do is support his shoulder blade area with his backhand, and with his right hand he can grab a hold of his gi very tightly. And Ed has to have a lot of confidence in Lowell's ability to support him so he doesn't land on his head, because what Ed's going to do is commit himself to throwing his feet up in the air as high as possible. All right, and this is how the drill looks. Okay, Lowell supports him all the way down. We're practicing both right and left sides again. Kemi is important to learn in both directions because you never know what direction a person will be throwing you. Now for Zempo Kemi, the one that avoids the score. Again, we start with the same drill as Koho Kemi. Oh no, you stand up. All right, grab his lapels. For this drill, Ed not only has to slap when he releases, he has to time a pivot. So he turns and lands with the chest facing the mat rather than his back. So again, Lowell's going to lower him. The moment he releases, Ed goes into action. Practices both directions. Okay, the application for this is very evident if I apply a technique such as Ouchigari. All right, and now for some drills on Zempo Kaitenu Kemi, the forward roll fall. The hands and knees. For this technique, we want Lowell's back to be as straight as possible. We want him to create a large pocket underneath his body. So he wants to rise as far as possible. Good. Ed will grab the nape of the neck right back here. That's going to be his controlling hand. Okay, that's his safety valve. If he's going too fast, this is what he pulls on to slow down. His head and his arm will snake around underneath Lowell, and he'll let his body snake around Lowell's body just as he did on the back falling techniques, and then he'll release with this grip and slap with it for a roll fall. Good. Notice the feet. One's not further out than the other. Try to keep them on a straight line. Good. Again. And one final time. Excellent. All right, when you've gotten confidence with this, you begin a flying roll fall. And what we're going to do with you, Lo, is to bring you over here. And what you want to do with this technique, on the right side, you'll place the right foot, drive off the right foot, and try not to touch your partner's body at all. All right, again. Okay, again. This time, low, turn around. Okay, this time, other side. And again. Okay, good, thank you. Ukemi, we spend a lot of time on it, but it's really important. It's a building block of your judo. If you don't know how to fall, you're not going to stay on the mats very long, and we want to keep you coming back. The fundamentals we've covered thus far have brought us up to the point where we can now begin to work on the actual fighting techniques of judo. The throws of judo are probably the most famous aspect of judo, and that's the first thing we're going to cover. With my assistant Ed, the first throws that we require in training in my club and the throws that are required for promotion to yellow belt are the first kill or the first stage of the Gokyo Nawaza, which is 5 stages of technique in judo. It's a total of 40 throws. Beyond the 40 is the Shimeso Nawaza, the newly certified techniques. And then when you get to black belt level, there are techniques that have been born in competition that are not yet recognized by the Kodokan. All right, the first technique is Dayashi Harai. Dayashi Harai is advancing foot sweep. And a sweeper throw is a technique where you get the man in motion and sweep the bottom out from the top. Okay? And there are 4 specific throwing modes that I have recognized and that I teach my students, and we'll be covering those as we approach them in the throws. This throw is a sweeper technique, and we both start with a standard grip in a right natural stance, and this is the way we learn this technique. We step back, and he mirror steps with me. He mirror steps, I side step, bring him through, and pull him into it. Bring him through and pull him into it. On advancing foot sweep, you want to make him feel as if he stepped in a drop-off. He's wading through the water and he stepped into a 20-foot drop-off. That's exactly how you want him to feel. It's especially effective if he walks out with his foot heel to toe. If you lock him here, you can catch him. Now, there's a window of time in foot sweeps. Sweeper throws demand more timing than any other aspect of, or any other mode of throwing. You want to get him as he's taking the step before he's planted the foot. Okay? So you have to get fast by going slow. You practice throws slowly several times until you can work up speed. Okay, so the steps are slowly, driving his foot back, pulling it forward, nice and slow. Driving it back, pulling it forward, driving it back, sidestepping with the right foot to get my right foot out of the way, pulling him forward, sweeping, and steering the hands so he lands on his back. The elbow grip pulls straight down. That's called the locking hand. That ensures that he'll end up on his back. The power hand is going to push him down onto his back. Sometimes if he steps and you can catch him with good timing and your hands work like a steering wheel, you can actually throw him just with hand motion alone. But what we want to do is have this whole thing work in harmony so that when he steps forward, the foot sweeps as the hands steer. And we've got 3 limbs turning his body. Okay? This is a good point to talk about what your different limbs do in a throw and the role they play. In most throws, you're going to have a locking hand, which in this case is the sleeve grip, that ensures he lands on his back. A power hand, which will transmit the drive from the driver leg, and a driver leg, which we just referred to, which pushes off the mat to transmit the energy for the throw, and then an attacking leg. In some throws, you keep both feet planted, and they can both be driver legs. But in a foot sweep, obviously one leg is going to be doing the sweep, and that is the attacking leg. So again, this technique is done step, step, step to the side, and sweep. And we'll turn 90 degrees. Step, step, step. Inside with the right foot and sweep. Sweep. It's important to step to the right foot to get it out of the way because you don't want to get in the way of your own throw. If I keep that right foot there, stepping with him, and then try my sweep, I'm going to run into my own foot. So it has to get out of the way for the sweep to come through. So again, step, step, step. All right, now, Hizaguruma is knee wheel throw, and that's the next technique. In our club, we call this high foot prop, and it's a driver technique which is the opposite of a sweeper technique. A sweeper technique, which you just saw, I swept the bottom out from the top. This is the top of his body, and I just swept it out. He had nothing to stand on, down he went. The object of a driver is to stop the bottom, move the top. Okay, so the sweepers take movement of his stance. Okay, it's very hard to attack a man posted in a very defensive stance. Very hard to sweep a man with his feet posted tightly to the ground. They stick. But it opens the door for driver throws. If he sticks his foot into the ground, then you just keep it there, drive him beyond his base, either short or long, and make your throw. For Hizaguruma, or high foot prop, what I'll do is I'll step way out to the side with my right foot, and I'm going to bring my left foot. Let's turn around so we can see this a little better. Diagonal. Okay. My left foot will be pronated so that the base of the foot will be just over the kneecap, just on top. We want it to rest in the nook of the lower thigh, right there. We want to lock out the knee as much as possible. The hands work differently than in Daishirai. In Daishirai, they turn this way. In Hizaguruma, they come out this way. What you're doing is you're drawing him long along his base. Propping the knee prevents him from taking a step forward on his base to recover his balance. So, I step to the side, and it's really important that I point the right foot inward. If I keep the foot this way, try to turn my body into the throw, the knee will lock out. So it's important I point the foot at him. Now I can turn my body much further and make the technique. Also notice I'm setting up that angle of attack I discussed earlier. All right? Step here, prop. Prop. And you'll notice the prop only has to be there for a second. If it stops him just for that moment he wants to take the step, the prop can come back down and go back to your stance as he's being thrown. So you notice I just have to catch it for a split second, and then it comes back down to the ground. And one more time for his agreement. All right. Sasai Tsurukomiyashi. It's a low foot prop, and the motions are exactly the same as Hizaguruma. But the difference is you're using a greater leverage. Rather than attacking at the knee, we're attacking right down here on his instep. All right, and the object is the same. I was left side. I'll do everything right side for the purposes of the tape. I encourage you to learn as much judo right and left side as possible. Throws, you're going to tend to go either right or left side because most people, people that aren't ambidextrous, have a stronger, better coordinated side, and that's the side they should play judo. As Erwin Cohen, a former Olympic teammate, said, he catches the ball righty, he eats righty, sleeps righty, he should play judo righty. All right, so Sasai, we prop lower. Again, it's important to turn the foot. You have to make a nice propping, just as if he tripped over the handle of a rake. It can't give. You drive him over that. Again, the driver leg has to turn in towards him so you can rotate through the throw. Watch the hands on this one. The hands really pulled around. Keep your hands in front of your body. Don't let them get behind your body. If he was made of glass, I never want my hands to be someplace I can't see them. When they're out of my peripheral vision, they're weak. All right, again, Sasai. And a nice slow one. And again, normal speed. All right, so far we've covered a sweeper and a driver. Now, the third mode of throwing is roller techniques. Rollers are when you change their posture. Either this way, get them crouched, get them bent backwards, what have you. You change their posture. Drivers are mainly stance attackers, used primarily when you can catch a guy on one foot. The sweepers, of course, are stance attackers. Getting back to ogoshi. From a right natural stance, I let the collar grip slip, the lapel grip slip. As I step, I clamp the small of his back. Don't grab the belt, that's a different throw. In our club, we call this technique low back clamp throw. It's a little longer than major hip throw, but I think it's a lot more descriptive. So what we want to do is come in, push him back, make him try to step back with that right foot. Notice I'm pushing my knee against his leg. Okay, now look what's happened. I've created a position where he's off balance to his right front corner in the short balance mode, this way. And that's the way you want to go with a roller. You want to roll him, change his posture this way. It's much more difficult to change a strong judo man's posture to the sides than it is to get him to bend forward or backward. So, when we come in, I make our shoulders meet, our right shoulders. Draw an X on both of them, make them meet. This hand has got to securely clasp the low of his back. Now I pivot in, turn my hips, pull them around with both hands. The clamping hand is very important because it keeps him locked to my hip so he can't jump around it. It's also important to bend the knees. A common mistake for beginner judo students is that they come in straight legs, no leverage there. You have to get your center of gravity well below his. So as I come in, I'm bent knees, turning. Notice my weight on the balls of the feet. Again from front. You notice when I drive him back, his natural instinct will be to slightly push. I take advantage of his push to throw him forward. Again from this direction. All right, the next technique is another sweeper technique, but this time it's to the rear. This is osotogari. Osotogari means major outside reap. O, major, soto, outside, gari, reap. For this technique, I want to keep his foot there. I don't want to let him plant that foot back. So what I have to do is quickly weigh down on his elbow so that it's hard for him to lift his right foot. I do that, I lunge forward onto my left foot, changing my stance from a right natural to a left natural for an instant. Now the reap comes in. The right foot must come across and cut down the leg I am attacking. It has to chop through. You don't want to come through bringing the leg up high, because again, where is my angle of attack? Okay? So the head goes down, the arm goes down, the locking hand goes straight down, the power hand pushes straight forward. Key element to this throw is not to let the hand get away from the body. Okay, there's something about strength that we're going to cover right now. If he keeps his hand close to his body, don't let me move your hand. Try to move a person's hand here. Hard, very difficult. Put your arm out here. Not hard at all. Hold it still. Don't let me move it. Piece of cake. All right, the further you get your hands from the body, the more strength you lose. Again, like we said when we were covering the grips, you're not pushing and pulling with arms only. The body works with the arms. The elbows are kept close into the ribs. When I change my stance, I'm going to pull him to his back corner. Notice how I caught him on his heel. If he steps back, Osotogari won't work. I'll have to change to a different technique. But I have to lock that down to ensure that doesn't happen. You'd have a hard time stepping backwards from here. Yeah. And now from this point, the reap comes through. Through, and down he goes. You'll notice I follow through on the throws in training, and that's good basic practice to develop the form for the throw. In self-defense, of course, you would not extend that way. For competition, it helps because the referees will see it, and it will be defined in their head as a throw. So, from Migi Shizentai, step out, lock him onto his heel. Again, head down, momentum going forward. I'm driving off the right foot. Now, the left foot carries the momentum for the throw. And the entire attack is this. And one more time. All right, we've covered sweepers, drivers, and rollers. Now we're on to the fourth and final mode of throwing, and that's lifters. The key element to lifters is don't try them if you can't physically lift your opponent. If Ed was 350 pounds, it would be a bad idea for me to try to lift him up. Okay? This lifter technique is called ukigoshi, floating hip throw. We call it hip point lifter because what you do is you take the point of the hip and you poke it into his abdomen with your legs bent, straightening up your legs, thus lifting him into the air. Once he's into the air, your arms work to pinwheel him down to the ground. And you'll notice actually what will happen on this throw, even though it's classified as a forward throw, many times he'll end up further back on the mat. All right. So from this position, it's very similar in appearance to ogoshi, the major hip throw, but the differences will be apparent. We'll explain it. But this is ukigoshi. All right, now let's discuss the difference. Ogoshi, the hip comes through entirely, and he's rolled over the hip. In ukigoshi, the point of the hip makes contact, and you don't roll him over anything. You lift him up on it. So You take the same back clamp grip as you do in ogoshi. The same pull into the abdomen with the sleeve grip, but the hips move entirely differently. Post your foot here rather than here. We're not trying to pivot in to turn around completely. Here to make contact with the hip. If you can't make that hip point contact, ukigoshi is impossible. So again, here, here. Once again. And again. All right, now notice what I'm doing. I'm using my leg muscles to lift him. I'm not trying to lift him up with my hands. Leg muscles work much more efficiently. Notice too that most of these throws work quite well for a shorter man against a taller opponent. If I had a shorter opponent, I'd have to come in with a much lower stance to get the same effect. All right, now we want to move on to a sweeper technique called ouchigari. Ouchigari is major inside reap. And it's one of the best competition moves. It's very difficult to counter. What we want to do for the sweeper version of this throw is to make a taisabaki pivot, get him to step, and then cut that leg out from under it. All right, so the way we cut the leg out is to take the right foot and describe a semicircle with the big toe, just like this. Okay, while my right leg is doing that, my left leg has to be lunging forward into the throw. It's a rear technique. All right, so pivoting. Again, pivoting, make him take the step. Okay? If he doesn't take the step, if he pulls hard, you have to attack with ouchigaki, which is a driver technique where you stop the bottom, move the top over. Ouchigari is supposed to be a sweeper, so you must get motion going. Again. Notice all these throws have started from the basic sleeve and lapel grip. What I want to do with ouchigari is once I've swept the leg, the lapel grip pulls straight down. And now I steer him more with the hand. That's on the sleeve. All right, the final throw for yellow belt requirements is Seoinage. Seoinage is a roller technique, and this technique is called back carry throw, is the literal interpretation. Marote Seoinage is two-arm back carry throw. Ippon Seoinage is one-arm back carry throw. Marote is the classical version of the Seoinage type move. Again, it is balance broken to the right front corner. You can do this by making him take that step back and try to brace himself. Once he tries to brace himself and push against me, see, the normal reaction is I push him, he'll push back. Okay, once you can get that action, now the elbow swivels under and I step around in a 90-degree pivot. Pivot. Notice I'm first taking this step and advancing 90 to get him to do this. Okay, the elbow's going down too. I'm getting him to take that step. When I pivot through, look at how my feet are pointed. Okay, it's important too to stay on the balls of your feet for your attacks. Don't get stuck on your heels. That's dead feet. So driving him back, step across, and through. Through. Though Marote Seoinage is the classical version that most people learn first, I prefer to teach Ippon Seoinage, or one-arm shoulder throw, for the simple reason that Marote here traps the elbow and can do a lot of damage if you're playing a heavier player and he just sinks down onto you. So in order to avoid injury to the arm, we practice in our club Ippon Seoinage. The difference is this hand releases. Goes underneath, turning, and throwing. Now, a lot of people call this shoulder throw, and I would call it shoulder throw too because you're controlling his shoulder. But never make the common mistake of sticking your shoulder underneath his armpit. All right, this is opening yourself up for a choke or any type of counter, especially to the rear. What I want to do is to rest his armpit into the crook of my elbow very tightly. So what I'll do is, again, when I'm pulling down here, I'll load it in. Now I've got control of his shoulder. Turn. And throw. All right, it's important to note too that every throw has a self-defense form where you remain standing and a competition form where you go down to the mat into mat work. The reason is, in competition, you don't know if you won the match with the throw. You have to assume you didn't and go into mat work to try to win the match. If you've won the match, the referee will let you know soon enough. So this is the self-defense form. Okay, the advantage for this is I remain standing. If there's more than one opponent, I'll still be able to handle what comes. If I go down to the ground with him, my time is limited. Also, a self-defense benefit is from here. I've got numerous wrist locks and striking techniques that we'll cover later. But for competition, I want to pin in the air and throw on the ground. So what I'll do is just start my hold on right in the middle of my throw. Okay, that way, if the throw doesn't score a full point or an ippon, I still have an opportunity to win the match. And that concludes the throwing techniques for yellow belt. In continuing with our yellow belt test, we cover offensive techniques and defensive techniques. Now we're going to cover a concept of throw defense. It's a concept called blocking and cutting. And we'll demonstrate with my student Ed Suko. Blocking and cutting is opposing his throw with direct force. If he tries to throw me forward, I'll pull back. I can change my posture to pull back. I might not have time to change my feet. So I'll change my posture to pull back, and block his attack. Cutting away is ripping loose his grips and trying to eliminate the threat of his throw. So if he was to come in with ippon seoinagi, I cut away. Notice I'm blocking with the hips. All right? Stop his throw dead. Make him feel like he threw a brick wall or threw right into a brick wall. Notice too, come in, the hip can turn. I can hit him with the point of the hip. All right, but a real important part is also to include the cutting with the block. Again. All right, blocking and cutting is useful against many of the throws in the first kyo, as well as all the throws we're going to cover. Some of the other blocking and cutting moves could be against ogoshi. All right, and if he was to apply ochigari, my block would be to the front. I'd push against him, try to separate him away from me, and then cut away by stepping around his rear. Okay, so that's the basic concept of blocking and cutting. And for yellow belt, you're expected to demonstrate a good grasp of blocking and cutting against various attacks. The next stage of techniques we'll cover for yellow belt is osaikomiwaza, or hold-down techniques. This is a part of the grappling techniques that you have to know in judo. For hold-down techniques, we'll begin with Ed lying flat on his back. And the first technique will be a technique called kesagatami. Kesagatami means scarf hold. In our club, we call this technique stride hold because you take a nice split leg stance or split leg posture like a running stride. The key elements of this hold down are keep the hip down on the ground. Never let it lift off the mat. When you underhook his head, lock it up tight. Don't let his head have any mobility, and don't let him bridge with it. The sleeve grip, I wrap his arm tightly around my own body, clamp it into my armpit, as far up into the armpit as you can, and then with this part of the wrist, I meet the point of his elbow, and then grab material right there. And this is a very good controlling move, keeping the head locked down, pushing in with the head, using it like a third arm to further immobilize the head. This is kesagatami hold down. It's a very powerful hold down. Kesagatami is shown from another angle. This is on the opposite side. Notice my knee is kept down. If I put it up here, he might try to overhook with his legs and scissors my leg to escape. I don't want to let that happen. So the knee stays down. A wide base. You have a tripod base of the hip and the 2 feet. You have to set as wide a base as possible in your hold downs to have stability. The main objective in your hold downs is to create chest-to-chest contact, pinning him down onto the ground. If you lose chest contact on him and you don't put your weight on him, he'll be able to get out of this hold down. So in the 5 major hold downs of judo, you want to always get the chest contact and secure a grip with your arms that prevent him from getting out from under the chest contact. I'm pushing in very hard on him. It's very difficult for him to breathe right now. I'm pressing into the side of his ribs. Every time he exhales, it makes it a little harder to inhale. Also note how my head that time pushed his head in a direction away from me. Getting back to that basic concept I discussed earlier, turn your opponent's weapons away from you. See, if I keep his head that way, it's very hard for him to come in and attack me with his free hand. He can't really use it with any strength. If I let him turn his head in, turn your head in, all right, now he's able to get in and work some escape techniques. Okay, so again, controlling here, very tightly keeping the head down and the base wide. If you keep your hip sunk into the mat and chest contact here, you'll have a very powerful hold. And I'll show it from one more angle. All right, and when we tie this together with throws, this is what we can come up with. For example, Diashirai. Ippon Seoinage. Ouchigari. All right, the next hold-on technique we'll work on is called Yoko Shiho Gatame. Yoko Shiho means side four corners hold. Again, on your back, please. The classical version of Yoko Shiho is to underhook the head and to grab right in through the crotch, grab the apron of his judo gi or any clothing you can get. When I underhook, secure a grip on the shoulder, pull in tightly, again ensuring chest-to-chest contact. A very important point on this is not to let yourself slide down to his stomach. All right, you're going to set yourself up for escapes if you do this. Maintain the chest contact. Don't be shy about this grip. Too many guys try to grab the thigh because they're shy about grabbing through the crotch. What happens is he pushes the legs out, straightens up the arm, and where's your hold on? It's gone. Have to keep control. That means go right down the middle. It's a little uncomfortable, but it's effective. In applications of Yoko Shiho Gatame, against the sai, and against ukigoshi. Now, in a competition situation or in a self-defense situation, I would have taken a modified yokoshio. I was here, I would not normally break and regrip. From here, I would take what I could get. But for purposes of the test, you want to go directly from the throw to yokoshio. One more point about yokoshio gatame, side hold. We have discussed the chest contact and the importance. And again, I remind you, a wide base. You'll notice when I get to chest contact, the feet are spread wide and they're live, driving in with the toes. Never dead, never on the backs of the feet. The stomach is pressed down into the mat, just as the hip was pressed in stride hold. Head is arched up to further apply pressure to the chest and to watch what he's doing. If I meet the pin with the head, I can certainly do it. And those are the basic holds that you need to know for a yellow belt. Okay, we've covered the 2 hold downs for yellow belt, and we also have to have defenses against these hold downs. We have 2 escapes that we're going to use for each hold down. The escapes are called bridge and roll and uphill turn, and I'll demonstrate them with that. Okay, Ed will take a stride hold on me, kesugatame, also known as scarf hold, and I want you to see how I turn my weapons towards him, my hands and my feet. I get a tight grip with both hands locking him onto my chest. I'll bridge, bring his body up, locked onto my chest, right up past my nose, and once he's up off the ground, once his hip is lifted off the mat, then I can start to roll him to the opposite side and take my own hold down. So here he's got a nice hold here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to snap it tight, and I'm going to grab down on his pant leg, pulling him in very tightly. Okay, now I bridge and drive him over to the side. From here, I keep this arm pinned with my head and then come into my own hold down to secure. All right, now let's see that same thing again in a training drill we use in our club. We'll bring both Ed and Lowell out. Lowell will take kesugatame on Ed. And Ed will again turn his head, his hands, his feet, his weapons towards Lowell. Sock in very tight. Grab as low onto the pant leg as possible with a very tight grip. Okay, at this point he locks both hands in, hugs him to his chest. He bridges through, over, and into his own hold down. Lowell will repeat the procedure. Lowell took a higher grip, but he's got an excellent bridge. He's a former Minnesota State Freestyle Wrestling champion, and his bridge is fantastic. So even with a grip on the belt, Lowell is able to complete this technique. What we do is we keep repeating the procedure on both sides. Hold down techniques must be learned right and left side, as the defenses have to be learned on the right and left side. If you can drive him up onto his head and lift his hip that high, you should have no trouble getting out of this hold down. Okay, very good. All right, now to the next escape. Why don't you just wait right here, Lowell. On to the next escape, uphill turn from stride hold. Take uphill turn. Okay, he takes kesugatame on me. What I'll do is I'll try to create a body space between our bodies in this technique, and I'll try to pull my shoulder through. I'm going to, again, turn my weapons in towards him and chug through from the shoulder, not pulling at the elbow, but at the shoulder. Let's see that from the other side. So he's here. I snap in and chug. I get up on my knees as soon as possible. Get free. Try to keep the arm whenever possible. If you're a senior, in competition, arm bars are illegal. Of course, in self-defense, arm bars are a necessity. If you're not a senior, if you're a junior from here, you can work a lot of turnovers, which we'll get to in other tapes. Now let's see the drill that we demonstrate in uphill turn. Alternating hold-ons. Snap in hard, push to create a gap. Pulling from the shoulder. What can happen is if you pull from the elbow, he locks in the arm, you still got you trapped. If you pull from the shoulder, you can still get it through. You just let your arm slide through. Okay, again. Notice the rotation of the hips. The shoulders following the hips, spinning out into a nice arm lock. Very good. Now we're going to see bridge and roll and uphill turn applied against the side hold. Yoko shiho gatame. Okay. What I'm going to do here, and I'll explain this from both directions, is grab the point of his hip. I'm going to drive my forearm underneath his belt, just along the belt line. With my right hand, I'll grab right between the shoulder blades, driving his head down towards my hip. All right? Pulling in his shoulder tight. I'm going to bridge with both feet, drive up in direction of my nose, and then snap them over into a roll. And now I'll take my own side hold from here. Okay. Again in demonstration, as they trade off. Notice where he grabs. All right, he grabs the belt at the point of the hip, driving the forearm straight across his belly. Pushing his head down to the hip, and bridge and roll. Bridge first. Make the opponent clear his hips off the mat. Then he's vulnerable to the roll. Don't simply try to roll him over with sheer muscle power. Okay, again, low, we'll bridge. Okay. Note how first you have to snap into the opponent slightly to get your position for the bridge and roll. And uphill turn from side hold. Again, the concept of creating a gap in which to move. You can push your palm of your hand on his shoulder, and again you can grab his belt, chug in, and again pull the shoulder free. Okay, from here we've got a lot of different moves, be it turnovers, chokes, or arm bars. And demonstration. You might not get it in one chug. You're going to have to chug through with the shoulders several times to get it against a hard hold down. But bit by bit, you can get it. Okay, very good. Very good. Lowell's turn. Okay, even a tight hold down, if you can chug through an inch at a time, you'll have your shoulder free. Again, you get up on your knees as soon as possible. Okay, excellent. One thing about hold downs, if you could lie on your back, please. Your opponent is going to try to loop around you to make his escapes more effective. What you have to do with your hold downs is keep your same relative body position. All right? What I'm saying is, if I feel that Ed is trying to pivot, I stay with it. This way my hold down stays the same in relation to his body. The chest contact is the same, the body positions are good. If I just stay here and he moves, all right, now he's got my leg. The hold is legally broken once he's scissored the leg. And he's also into another escape that we'll cover on a third tape. But the important thing is stay mobile if he gets mobile. But make no unnecessary moves in groundwork. All right, and this goes for both side hold and for stride hold. Okay, and those are the basic bridge and roll and uphill turn escapes. The next section of katame waza, or grappling techniques, that is covered in the yellow belt test is shimiwaza, or choking technique. The first choking technique will be sukomi jime. It's called thrust choke or poke choke, and it's often called white belt choke because it's so easy to apply. There's a couple different ways to take the grip on it. You can take both hands in a normal grip, pull in under, push across. All right, you can take an inverted grip on the crossing arm, and you can go underneath with the crossing arm. But in any of these situations, what we're trying to do is to put pressure on the carotid arteries, which run down each side of the neck. They supply the blood to the brain. If you can cut off this circulation, unconsciousness can result in as quick as just 2 or 3 seconds. Now, we want to avoid putting chokes on the windpipe in a competitive situation and all but the most serious self-defense situations. Direct pressure to the windpipe can break it. So we want to cause as little injury to our opponent as possible. Again, pulling down and in will start pressure across the carotid. Pushing across will complete the motion to both carotids with Tsukomi Jime. It's important that you remember to tap in this technique. Tapping, as used in most martial arts, is preferably done to the body of the person applying the technique. He knows immediately upon receiving 2 or 3 taps to release the technique. If you can't tap your opponent, tap the mat loudly with your hand or with your feet. If you can't tap with your hand or feet, and unless you're in a choke, which is hard to say stop, you use your voice, okay? Say let go or whatever you have to do. All right, this is a very basic, easy choke to learn. It can be done in mat work or in standing technique. The second choke we're going to cover, we'll start from a kneeling position. Okay, is Hidaka Jime. Hidaka Jime is naked strangle, and there's 2 variations that are required for the yellow belt test. The first variation, the arm comes across the neck, and you're choking with the inside surface of the forearm against the carotid. Clasp your hands tightly, push your shoulder in the back of his head, driving his carotid into your forearm. It's very important, too, that when you clasp your hands, you never interlace fingers. When you interlace fingers, they can be squeezed together and crushed. So again, the first Hidaka Jime, across, in. Notice how I can bring my knee in behind his back to apply additional tension to the lock. Pushing in with the shoulder, driving across on the carotid. It's not choking his windpipe, it's pushing in on the carotid. All right, now the second type of Hidaka Jime is, rather than clasping the hands, take the inside of the elbow and push on the back of the head. And the results will be the same. Pressure against the carotid artery. Once again, the second version of Hidaka Jime. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull up with this arm and back. This arm pushes down. His neck is caught in the middle. And those are the basic chokes you need to know for yellow belt. Okay, we've learned some chokes. Now let's learn a basic defense when somebody tries a choke. The first defense we're going to do is a chin tuck. And it's very easy to accomplish. All you have to do is anticipate the choking action. If he sees my hands come up and cross, he'll put his chin down. Granted, he might get a bruised lip, but he's not going to get the blood cut off to his brain. I think getting a bruised lip is the lesser of 2 evils. I can't complete the motion to make the choke with the chin tucked in. Okay? If I can't work the chin up, I won't get the choke. And this works in Hidaka Jime also. If he anticipates the choke, sees the arm coming around, tucks in the chin, it's very hard to apply the choke. Okay? Either Hidaka Jime. If he tucks in the chin, very hard to apply the choke. What we'll have here is a headlock. Illegal in competition judo. Okay. Now we're going to move on to striking technique. The atemi waza is basically strictly used in self-defense for judo. It's not used in competition, and I feel that the terminology for the atemi waza is best kept at English. Boxing terminology seems to work the best for my students. It's the way we've been working with it for years, and we've had a lot of success with it. The first technique we have to know is the jab. And the way you do the jab is off Migi Shizentai with the fists at about shoulder level. Thrust out the leading hand with a snap and bring it right back to your fighting stance. Your striking surface will be the 2 large knuckles of the hand. It's important the wrist is kept straight. All right, so you can stand right here with me in right natural and jab. Okay? Now, the jab is probably the best strike to do for an initial attack. And the purpose of a temiwaza in judo is not necessarily to take a person out with one punch. It's simply to distract until you can enter into grappling or throwing. So if I jab, if I even make him blink, that starts a reaction that takes about a half a second, an instinctive reaction that his body cannot recall once it's been started. So if I even make him blink, if it even doesn't connect, I can use that jab to apply grappling technique. All right, so the jab is always from the lead hand. All right, the next technique we'll want to cover is the cross. The cross is from the guard hand. And if you start with a jab, you might set up a cross. If I start with a jab and block his hand, it's also known as an overhand cross. All right? What I want to do when I'm doing a jab or a cross is to try to get his weapons turned away from me. All right? If I have Ed's hands and I'm simply on the inside here, he still has at least one weapon to strike me. Even if I block this hand, he's got a weapon to strike me with. So what I want to do with my strikes is to try to get both his hands on one side of a plane. If I could cut a line right down the center of him, I'd want both hands on either side. Okay? So what I like to do with the jab is not only to connect against the hand itself, but to brush it out of the way to make room for the cross. Okay, now we're going to move on to the kicking techniques required for yellow belt. Many times you're not going to be able to use your hands because your opponent will have a longer reach and he'll be able to make contact with you before you'll be able to contact him. At these points, kicking is a really good way to go. Kick to the knee is about as high as I would recommend for anybody of yellow belt level. And it's primarily a self-defense technique. You would, of course, never use this in contest, for judo contests. But there's a couple different ways to kick at the knee. If you kick straight into the knee, you're going to lock out the kneecap. If you kick to the side, you could take out a lot of ligaments in the knee. And if you kick it in the back, you can collapse his knee. There's a few different ways you can do this. The first technique we're going to use is a side snap kick to the knee. All right? All right, now watch the foot position. I'm going to start from a fighting stance, kick out. Notice how I brought the left foot in slightly just to help cover the distance. I'm realigning my hips with my feet. And then I get back down to a fighting stance. Watch how the foot turns to create a blade. The outside edge of the foot. The snap kick can also be done with the base of the foot. The objective, though, for any snapping attack is to retract on the moment of impact. All right, again, if he throws a punch, this is an excellent combination. All right? That's the side snap. A front snap is simply with the ball of the foot, same idea. All right? In training, don't make contact with the knee. Practice pulling shy a few inches. Every time you make a kick, your objective should be to land it focused on the target and to bring your feet back down into a solid fighting stance. When your leg is in the air, your balance is a one-point balance and it's in a state of constant flux and transition. If somebody grapples with you from this point, it's easy for them to take you down. That's why in judo, you don't want to throw kicks any higher than the waist unless you have control of the arm on the side you're attacking. And we'll cover that in further tapes. Now the up block is used to cover the punches that we had covered before, the jab and the cross. If I jab, or you jab against me, okay, I'll block him with I can use both hands or one hand. Okay, a block is different from a parry. A parry is a deflection, and we'll cover those in later tapes. A block, what you're doing is very similar to what's happening when you slap the mat. You're absorbing the shock of the strike into the arms. The forearms can take a lot more punishment than your face can. All right, so if he punches at me, up block. Okay, if he's using a hooking punch, then your arm will act as if you were doing a parry to a straight thrust. Okay? All right? A good block is going to punish him as much as he's trying to punish me on his striking surface. You want to make him feel like he hit a brick wall with your block. All right? So that's the up block. Try to keep the elbows in close to the body. Don't let the elbows float out to where you can be vulnerable to a shot to the body. Okay, those are the basic striking techniques of yellow belt, and we'll be doing a lot more refining in the striking techniques in the tapes to come. Thank you. Okay, that concludes the technical requirements for yellow belt. I hope you enjoyed watching and studying, and I encourage you to train very hard and to find a judo club in your area that you can participate in. The other requirements for yellow belt are time and grade of at least 1 month, and that includes 2 lessons a week of at least 2 hours per session in a competent judo club. And you have to display sound character and know the basic rules and etiquette of competition judo. Also, you have to know safety rules and be very conscious of safety on the mat for yourself and for others. It's very important in judo that you participate with other people. The tapes can give you some technical insights that you wouldn't get otherwise. But again, I want you to contact the United States Judo Association, and I'll be giving you the number in a moment. It's been an honor being your instructor for this tape. I wish you the best of luck. Train hard, and we'll see you on tape 3.